That's why it's really important to have a plan. Have a plan and understand what your goals are.
In fact, my camel out there is suffering right now with a broken back.
So I actually found Pepe when it was only a couple of hours old, and I'm like, oh, this is a funny meme.
Oh my god.
Yo! Who is this degen?
The old man is swing trading over years at a time. And it's like, that's where the real money is made.
The answer is a permanent loss. With single-sided staking, you don't have to worry about impermanent loss.
Really, at the end of the day, it's just the matter of a macro market. It's just what happens.
If you're aware, if you're disciplined, you can hone that into further financial growth.
Financial freedom, so we can actually live life and not have to be constantly living paycheck to paycheck. I mean, that's the ultimate goal, more or less, right?
Good evening, ladies, gentlemen, and D-gentlemen of all ages. Welcome back to the D-Gen Roundtable Book Club Show. Happy Friday to everybody out there. Tonight, we're going to be covering, or I guess rather, it's pretty much time for our quarterly installment of Z and Will Rail Against the Federal Reserve. But we're talking about End the Fed by Ron Paul. Bit of a, kind of known guy out there, and also pretty big face when it comes to the Libertarian Party. So he does include a little bit of that in the book, but this is primarily a Federal Reserve book and arguments against it. Particularly for me, one of the most interesting parts of this is that because, was he a senator or representative? Either way, he was an elected member of Congress, and during his time there, he actually was in committee positions where he got to grill the chair of the Federal Reserve, multiple of them, in fact, and had some interesting back and forth with those guys. So this is a bit of a fresh take on the quarterly installment of Boo, Federal Reserve Bad, but that is what we got going on tonight. Hello, I am your host, Zenith. It is a pleasure to be with you guys, as always. I am a bit of a government and legal analyst around these types, and I'm joined by the man who climbs towers and the man who has land and hunts on it, none other than Mr. Will Stevenson. How you doing, buddy? All right, he must be out of range grabbing a beer, but we will get back to him in a hot minute. Folks, thank you so much for joining us tonight. I know it's been a bit of a minute since you've seen me on screen, but it is a pleasure to be back with you guys. And yeah, this book is actually courtesy of Will. This is a good little 6-hour read. I will say I was able to get through it at 2.5 times speed with my little broken brain thing, and it worked pretty well. All right, he's back. Ladies and gentlemen,
I'm back.
Our co-host, the man with powers, the man with lands, and the man who hunts, Mr. Will Stevenson. How you doing, man?
Goddamn cops at the door, bro. Hey, first and foremost is I don't answer questions. Second thing is I don't answer questions. And the third thing is I reserve my right to have a lawyer present when you guys ask me questions. So they wanted to know if some neighbor was doing some shit. And I'm like, I don't fucking know. Don't care. Anyways, if you guys are up in Colebrook, New Hampshire, don't ride your quads on city property. Fucking gay. But yeah, what was your question? Oh, hello everybody. How's it going? My name is Will Stevenson. I'm a tower worker. I guess gets the cops to visit me or some shit. I should put a one of those you know how you pull up to a gas station and they'll have that air hose on the ground that goes ding 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 whenever they roll. I need to put one of those on my driveway because I just got blitzed. But anyways, I should not have answered the fucking door. I need a camera or something. But dude, life is good. Life is great. I've been building tree houses and having tons of fun up here in New Hampshire. And I got to go down to New Jersey for a week to do a D-stack job, taking out a 300-foot tower. And other than that, man, it's great. I like how, we do have our quarterly bash the Fed thing. And there is one correction that I would like to make. When you announced the good Dr. Ron Paul, I believe that his title is His Eminence, the the one and only ne'er has we found a man so great as Ron Paul, something like that. I don't know. I was gonna say Lord and Savior, but he probably wouldn't like that since he's Christianish or whatever. But the man, the myth, the legend, Ron Paul himself. So shout out to Ron Paul. Shout out to everything that the Paul family does. So yeah. That's what's up with me, man. What's up with you? How are you doing? What's new and exciting with you?
I'm doing well. I'm happy to not be traveling for 1 week at least. I had a wedding previous week. Actually, rather, it was Memorial Day this last week. Had a bunch of plans for that. wedding the week prior to that, and I have another wedding coming up this next week. So I will be gone next Friday for book club. Apologies in advance, but we are apparently staying busy. The first half of the year, I have just jam-packed with travel, and I'm actually really looking forward to not traveling for a hot minute, as fun as it is, because turns out when you work, you have to travel on the weekends. And I've discovered that I primarily stream on the weekends, Thursday, Friday, and Sunday. And those
I
are
was gonna say,
travel
bro.
days.
Ever since you guys switched the stream day from Monday to Thursday, it's like, god damn, Zenith's got to be fucking cooking over there at Walk the Block. That's gotta be nuts, bro.
Yeah, we're doing that. I think I streamed last night over there, and then I also recorded a little after-hour segment for the gang in the Telegram, because there was an article. There is a primary election going on around Houston in Texas, and the representative Al Green actually got ousted by a new up and comer, and it was largely due to a crypto super PAC actually that poured over $5 million into the election race, which is for that race that was a tremendous amount of money. And I was trying to analyze the story and try to figure out, okay, is this a crypto story? Is this a politics story? And the answer was, it's actually a crypto story, because I was looking at the political positions of both candidates, outside of the new guy being like half the age of the our 20-year veteran of Congress there. Really, the core difference was just the pure stance on crypto, because Al Green was very much anti-crypto, and the new guy was like, yeah, no, we kind of need this. And I was like, okay, let's go. Granted, they're still on the Democratic side of the aisle, so my personal bent of like the whole ban guns thing and more expansion of government services, I'm like, it's not really me. But again, not my state, so can't really speak to it much. But the big thread was that the big donors for the super PAC, I believe it's called the Protect Progress Pact, which is an interesting name for it, but Coinbase is actually the biggest donor for that one. So we saw Coinbase really throw their weight around when it came to the Clarity Act, and we've actually seen them throw their weight around when it comes to political races now as well. And it's kind of a pivotal moment, because guess what? If the Clarity Act isn't getting passed in this congressional session, well, the next one, they're going to have one new person on the, theoretically, if he replaces Al Green. Al Green was previously on the House fiscal, pretty much he's on one of the committees that handles finances for the House of Representatives, and to have a crypto person on that is actually going to be a pretty big boon to the crypto industry.
Hell yeah, dude. That's fucking...
So shout out to everybody in the Telegram that caught that one.
Yep. Good shit. I think I was able to hop into your guys. I think I was over there.
Yeah, we saw you last night.
A little bit, but I was mostly like, it was mostly what's that dude, Tom Lee. It was mostly Tom Lee talking. So I was like, I'm going to tune out a little bit. I went back to listening to the book, and then I would hop back in a little bit, and then I caught the end of the stream. So yeah.
Last night we covered a 13-minute video by Tom Lee. It was kind of like his quarterly earnings report or presentation to his company. He was talking about like what the company's performance is doing in relativity to the Ethereum price, and then also he was claiming that it's crypto spring, and that, this is our third month of Ethereum up, and we've never seen this in a bear market. And it's like, well, he released that video 2 weeks too early, because since then we have gone pretty much exclusively down. Overall, it's Tom Lee, so you got to take him with a grain of salt, because he's out here proclaiming that Ethereum should be like $62,000, and it's like, brother, I wish Ethereum was $62,000. Believe me, if it was, there'd be a decent chance I wouldn't be working anymore.
It seems like, there's been a lot of people buying the top, a lot of like cool people. Ricky bought the top. Fucking Tom Lee's buying the top. The only people not buying the top is the fucking Ethereum Foundation.
Guess so.
Instead, they're selling the bottom. That's what they're fucking doing. So. But yeah, man, lots of people just buying the fuck out of Ethereum. Man, this bear market just does not want to end. I don't know what the fuck's going on. Hopefully it peters out here soon enough.
I mean, good news, bad news. Good news is, because this is Uncle Z's personal theory here, because Bitcoin didn't run up nearly as much, and we didn't see an altcoin go nearly as hard as it did, it means we had a muted high. If that's the case, then reason believes that we would have a muted bear market as well. So theoretically, that like 52% drop that we've seen, there is a case that is the bear market low. That would go against all 4-year cycle traditional thinking, because if you go a 4-year cycle, 2026 is not going to be a great year because 4-year cycle is most accurate low to low as opposed to high to high. And the last low that we had was end of 2022. 4 years later, that's end of 2026.
Fuck them, man.
Yeah.
Fuck them. I'm sorry. My head is like I'm still like thinking like, man, what the fuck else are the cops doing? Like wandering around on my land. Like, no, I was just thinking like, man, I
little
didn't
mentally
see 'em, like,
occupied, huh?
yeah. Well, I'm just like, I'm off my law. I'm wondering like, what are they doing? Are they snooping around the fucking forest? Because they had to drive up a pretty treacherous driveway to get here. Like my driveway is like 300 meters long of switchback gravel. You know, ask Nate. It's fucking nuts. So I'm sorry. I totally spaced on what you're saying. You were saying though, basically like, Bitcoin was muted cycle and some like some silly shit. Hang on,
Yeah,
Zenith.
because
I'm
we
gonna
didn't
hop off. I'm
go
getting
for
a
it.
call now from that very same neighbor. Give me 1 moment. I'll be right back.
You got it. Yeah, pretty much what I was saying is that because because Bitcoin didn't really have a blow off top, hopefully the lows will be lower, but it's still an untested theory and time's only going to tell. But I know you guys probably didn't come here tonight to talk about crypto stuff. Came here for book club, and which, by the way, all the good people out there, I see you just live. He says, "What is your occupation, Uncle Z?" I am an engineer and project manager. So yeah, half of that is productive. The other half, people would argue that I am just a paper pusher, which is why my hands are so uncalloused as of late. But hopefully the gym helps keep that up. And no, Will, I am not a stripper. And thankfully, I'm not a fluffer either. Yes, thank you, gentlemen, for that. Oh my gosh. Alrighty. Tell you what, Will is on the phone, so I am going to jump into a bit of the synopsis. So first and foremost, let's talk about the author, actually. Who is our fine gentleman that we're looking at tonight? Our fine gentleman is none other than Dr. Ron Paul, American author, activist, medical doctor, and former politician. I want to say he was actually a flight surgeon in the Air Force as well. So overall, dude's got a crazy resume. Like, this is awesome. He was a representative for Texas's 22nd Congressional District, and then again for the 14th District. Did run for the president as part of the Libertarian Party, and then also as the Republican candidate in 2008 and 2012, if you guys remember that one. But a lot of, yeah, here you go. Serves as a flight surgeon in the U.S. Air Force. Guy's done some cool stuff. But pretty much the big story for him is that if you ask anyone who is kind of the foremost libertarian that's out there, it's going to come down to between Ron Paul and Rand Paul, effectively. And, well, you can see that with the things he cares about in the book, he definitely cares about constitutionalism, libertarian ideas, and a lot of kind of like founding ideology, and absolutely rebukes a lot of the stuff that's kind of happened throughout America's history. In particular, I think he would say that he is not a very big fan of how the legal rulings have come down when it comes to constitutional interpretation. He says that the necessary and proper clause has gotten way too much leniency and has honestly been a lot of the problems going on, and pretty much given free reign and power to people to expand the power of the federal government because they didn't curtail that in. But notably, he is one of the big battlers. He is, as much as Will and I cover the Federal Reserve press conferences and we have our back and forth with our imaginary Jerome Powell, this guy has had real life back and forths with Alan Greenspan, Bernanke, I think it's Bert, and then there was another one. But
the two that I remember are Greenspan and Bernanke, because those are the ones that were like, leading up to the 2007 bullshit, the 2008 crap.
Yeah. And by the way, speaking of which, yes, this book was written and published in 2009. So guess what the biggest pressing issue of the day was? Yeah, it was the 2007-2008 housing collapse and also the financial crisis that went with it, which turned out to be a big bailout for the banks. So yeah, the Federal Reserve book is also going to take a clean and clear shot at the banks, as we'll get into here tonight. So speaking of the book, let's see what we got. Alrighty, End the Fed was written by Ron Paul and published September 16, 2009, in the aftermath to the financial crisis. The book was written as both a critique of the Federal Reserve and a broader argument for sound money, limited government, and Austrian economics. So, coming into it, starts off with, we have the case against the Fed. He's pretty much saying that the Federal Reserve should not be treated as an untouchable institution and deserves some public scrutiny. Says it was created to stabilize the economy, but actually instead produces its own instability. Economic booms and busts were caused by artificial credit expansion, courtesy of none other than the Federal Reserve, and it operates with insufficient transparency and accountability. And lastly, most Americans do not understand exactly how much power it exercises. I will say there was a really good quote from the first chapter of the book where he says that the Fed's main power is to weave illusions, kind of saying that, like, look, they inject money and are particularly in a digital age, they don't even have to print the money. So it's just numbers that they punch into the system and then spread to the banks. And the illusions only work as long as people believe in it and don't act against it. Up next, we have kind of the origins. This is a lot of the stuff that you already know. Federal Reserve was created through alliance with central banks and governments. And then the famous Jekyll Island meeting really was the big moment where they kind of got all the big brains together, or the big money bags anyways, and then kind of came up with the idea for the Federal Reserve. And ultimately, when they pitched it as a bipartisan resolution to get through, as opposed to, I believe the Republicans were in power at the time and seen only as Republican agenda, it was denied. But as soon as they, incorporated the other side of the aisle, then it went through. After that, we get to money and the Constitution. In this chapter, he specifically goes into the fact that under the 23 enumerated powers of the United States federal government, the Constitution explicitly does not authorize the creation of a central bank, because the 10th Amendment and Article 1, Section 8 pretty much say that anything listed not here, the federal government cannot do. But again, that necessary and proper clause ended up in the position where we're at, where we ended up getting one. He says that go for it.
I was just going to say that, so Article 1, Section 10 of the Constitution says that no state shall mint any. I'm pretty sure it's Section 10. It says that no state shall mint monies other than gold and silver for tender of currency. And the Fed is not the state. The Fed is a private thingamajigger that borrows, or that the state, that the federal government borrows the money from. And so that's how they get around that little thingamajigger, is one, by it being private, and two, by it happening in the District of Columbia, which is also not a state, it is a U.S. territory. So it's the Article 1, Section 10 limits limits the powers of the 50 states, which are themselves their own little semi-sovereign nations and things. So that was some of the stuff I've been learning from Branjo Williams in his third course that just came out. So I just wanted to chime in there with that little bit. So gold and silver coins are the only tender of currency for states.
Correct. So to finish out this chapter, he talks about the founders preferred hard money and were very skeptical of paper currency. Fun fact, we had a fiat paper currency when we created the nation back in the late 1770s, and that was called the Continental dollar. I was actually looking at those on eBay because I was like, I kind of would love to own one, just as an artifact or a museum piece, and also a great talking point. But the cheapest one I was looking at was $350. I was like, oh my gosh,
jinkies.
Yeah,
that's no small amount.
Not at all. Alrighty, next, talking about inflation. But he primarily says that inflation is a hidden tax. It is fundamentally an expansion of the money supply. And as new money enters, it enters unevenly as well. Therefore, the people that are closest to the source of the new money will benefit first, and the further away you are, the worse the effects are. Pretty much says that if you're trying to save or earn your way to do anything, you're losing purchasing power over time, just with the fact that inflation happens. And it happens purely because we operate on a fiat currency that is at the whim of the Federal Reserve and the federal government. After that, we get into the business cycle. So if you guys remember, did we ever read Keynes? I know we read
John
Hayek.
Maynard Keynes?
John Maynard Keynes. I know we read Hayek. I don't know if we read Keynes.
I don't think so. If we did, I certainly don't remember. So
that was also fair.
We have effectively not read it.
There you go. Yeah. So this is where we talk about the Keynesian economic idea, which is that through that kind of economic philosophy, the government can be a massive spender and help in times of bust and then ease off in times of boom. However, they kind of forgot that whole easing off process. So that's where we get hyperinflationary stuff.
And then there's also the fact that the government doesn't generate any revenue. So every single dollar that the government spends is dollars that are hurting the populace. Either they're hurting it directly through taxes or they're hurting it directly through inflation. Both of which are bad, and you look at the American government, it's doing both. It's both taxing the citizens and it's inflating the currency. So you're getting the double tax, one into the right now, hey, pay more taxes to fund this stuff. And the other one is hey, you're getting taxed later, which is your money supply is being inflated. So it's anytime the government spends money, it's bad because it's Not bad in that like what they do with the money is good or bad. It's bad in that it's extortion sort of deal. So
I hear you.
like it's a good thing for me to spend money helping the homeless, but it's not a good thing if I get that money by clubbing somebody else over the head with a stick to get that money. And it's like, I'm, robbing Peter to pay Paul, something like that. So
True. Alrighty, for the business cycle, the good doctor here takes particular issue with the Fed and the government. He says that the artificially low interest rates created unsustainable investment booms, and that these booms would eventually collapse into recessions, and that the biggest one that he's dealing with here is the housing bubble, and he's pointing the finger squarely at the banking system and the Federal Reserve. And his key takeaway from this one is that, look, you created the Federal Reserve to get away from boom and bust cycles that happen with seasons in agriculture, and instead, you're the entire cause and source of all the ones that we have faced over nearly the last 100 years.
Fucking A.
Yeah. All right. Then we get into Fed and financial crises. Says the Great Depression was actually worsened by Federal Reserve policies, and the dot-com and housing bubble were also fueled by cheap credit, causing just a huge run-up and ultimately the huge crash that followed it. Again,
Hey, where does huge credit come from, or where does cheap credit come from? Zenith, is there a
it comes
place?
from the Federal Reserve keeping interest
Oh.
rates very low and
Oh
minimum
no.
minimum borrowing ratios at extreme levels, if not zero.
hmm
Yeah.
Which we just had recently. We just had quite a bit of that during the old zombie virus that killed tens and tens of people.
Yeah. Speaking of which, she also says that as you do this kind of stuff, you also create bailouts and moral hazard for saying that you're here to help the people. And when do you help them the most? In times of panic. When do you not try to help them? When times are good and you claim all the profits for themselves. The author argues on this one that bailouts reward failure actually, and they incentivize the systems that they're trying to discourage. Then saying
Privatized profits and socialized losses.
yes, sir. That was one of the big quotes as well. Saying that the large financial institutions receive preferential treatment, and that the losses become socialized while profits remain private. Stole the words right out of my research there.
Yep.
Next up,
Yep.
this is where we get a little bit of the more libertarian bent. But he's actually arguing that war has been largely fueled by the Federal Reserve, or at least the incentive it's created. Saying that because governments historically finance wars through inflation or through debt, which they did pay off previously, the U.S. actually paid back a lot of debt when it came to the Revolutionary War, 1812, and the Civil War. But after World War I, we kind of got away from that. Pretty much saying that centralized banks make it easier to fund military operations without raising taxes. Because if you have to tax the people are very against war. Well, what if you didn't have to tax them and just make the money? Well, then you don't have to go through the people, and they're probably a little more okay, or at least not paying attention to the war going on, especially if it's not on U.S. soil. Saying that, yep, exactly that. Next up, we get the Fed and government growth, saying that easy money enables the deficit spending. Politicians can promise benefits without immediately raising taxes, and central banking allows the government to grow beyond what taxpayers would directly support. Because there's no cost to it, because people believe that there's no cost to it, they don't actually go into that mental model of what am I getting, what am I paying, that kind of stuff. Instead, it's just like, yeah, do it, whatever, we'll pay for it later. Who cares?
Swipe that credit card. We don't have a limit. Yeah.
Next up, we get auditing the Fed. This is a particularly interesting chapter for me because he dove into some of the specific regulations surrounding this. The Fed lacks any meaningful transparency. And in fact, the sections where there is transparency for members of Congress or federal administrations to audit specific monetary areas, they're granted a lot of power to do so. Except for the Federal Reserve, because there is a very specific carve-out that they cannot attend or even look at the notes of private meetings that they have regarding their routine operations, honestly. All the big stuff, all those FOMC meetings, we only get the press conference at the end of it. We only get question time with Jerome Powell, or formerly Jerome Powell at this point. There's all the meetings that go on before that, all the research that they have. Guess who cannot look at any of it? Anybody outside of the Federal Reserve, including Congress, by the way. It says that the main issue here is that Congress has delegated enormous power to the unelected officials, and because of that, they've really lost that power, and it no longer resides in them, which is a great irony, I will say. And he says that because of this, Americans don't even know where money is created or allocated. So in this one, he's actually making a two-pronged argument, which is that auditing the Fed, A, he doubts that they even have the ability or the power to do so from his standpoint. But he's also saying that because they're so shrouded in secrecy and they've done such a good job of remaining behind closed doors, because people can't see it, there's no way to really know or understand it. And it kind of gives this false secrecy, or really just gives it a great camouflage, as this is honestly one of the big driving forces behind the American economy, or at this point, the global economy. But because it's so hidden, people don't realize that it is the driving force. Therefore, they don't even really care about it.
Yep. Fucking end it. Cut it out like a tumor.
True.
A tumor that
Alrighty.
just keeps growing. What a good analogy.
Yeah. Alrighty. Final 2 chapters here. I like these 2 in particular. Alternatives to the Federal Reserve. Here he's saying that, well, hear me out. What if we had competing private currencies that were allowed in the marketplace, and the marketplace would decide what the best currency is? Again, this book was written in 2000, or published in 2009. There was a little known thing that came right around that time, but this is still well before cryptocurrency, even the first one, or the idea of it, was really mainstream at all. But this sounds a lot like the crypto markets that we have now, which is theoretically all the cryptocurrencies are a form of currency. And as a result, we do kind of have an open marketplace. Granted, they definitely don't perform the core functions of money outside of just being a unit of exchange and easily transactable. But that's unfortunately not something we get in this book.
I mean, it could be a very fluid definition. Like like it's not super fungible. And I'm sorry, we're not going to get into the weeds here. Keep going, Zenith.
That's a question for later. Don't you worry.
Yes.
Next up, we get into the good old gold and silver talk, saying that gold and silver should circulate freely. And the good doctor has a particular fondness, or at least he believes that these are the best answers for a form of money, currency, store of value, whatever you want to call it. Because one of the best quotes he had from this one is that gold is a very special thing because time after time it was chosen by the market as the single largest store of value, regardless of the era. So that one's kind of the wisdom of the free markets. The collective hive mind of millions of people making millions of transactions will always be smarter than the biggest group of smart guys you can get together. That's exactly what he's talking with this one. And in my opinion, it's a very Austrian school of economics argument, but at the same time, I think it has proven to be right. Next up, we got market forces should determine interest rates. Taking a clean shot right at the Federal Reserve again, which is, why are you guys determining interest rates? Shouldn't the market determine interest rates? Because if you've caught a lot of the press conferences that we've covered, we've talked about Jerome Powell, and now we talked about R-star, or the neutral rate, this theoretical intangible rate that the market would like to be at. And he says that they try to approach it or try to hold it there, but that also has several implications as well, saying that, A, the market kind of knows what it is. It might be hard to like calculate the specific number, but it at least knows when the interest rates are either too restrictive or too lax.
I think like anthropomorphizing, whatever the fucking word is, where you assign like human characteristics to a non-human thing. It's not so much that the market knows, it's that the market rewards the things that works. And like when someone goes too high, then they fizzle out and die out of necessity. When someone goes too low, then people take advantage of them and they go out of business, et cetera, et cetera. It's not that like the market has some sort of like idea and there's a whole bunch of stuff. It's just like, this is the thing that works because people pay for it because they want it. When you inject like what would be the phrase, like hand of God authority into this like this mess of people trying to conduct free will, then you're taking away their free will, and then they're not really you're going to end up with a whole bunch of flaws in the system because people are being forced to pay for things that they don't want to, or people are being like or people being forced to sell things at rates they don't want to. So it's like it's important to think for the folks at home that it's not like the market has some sort of mind, or that there's some sort of like there's not some sort of like big hand of economics. It's just that like the market is always trying things, and what works continues and what doesn't work dies. It's kind of like Darwinism at a hyper fast rate sort of thing. That's how I would sort of kind of describe it. And so when you try and play God over like as a human being, you can't make decisions fast enough to keep up with the stuff that people want. sort of deal. So like you're always going to be several steps behind, and you're always going to be fucked, and you're always going to be making the wrong decisions if you're trying to um centralize something that isn't supposed to be centralized. Like by its very nature, when a whole bunch of people are getting together and working on something and buying and selling and buying and selling, an amalgamation of stuff. So anyways, that was my thoughts on that,
No,
is
you're
like
good.
the
I was gonna
market.
say, if I had to give the analogy for trying to find this perfect neutral rate, imagine like one of those like big metal abstract sculpture things, and then
Hmm.
the Federal Reserve is trying to balance it on their finger and find that perfect middle point where it balances, as
Yeah,
opposed to Ron Paul is saying, "Why are you trying to balance it on your finger? Just put it on the ground and see where it lies."
yeah.
But
Yep.
they kind of don't like the market getting thrown on the floor, if you will.
Well, and it's also like, instead of balancing it on your finger, trying to do it one thing, there's like 1,000 fingers that are constantly like poking and prodding, and they're finding the perfect balance point, because
Yep,
it's being poked and prodded so many times by people buying and selling, companies going out of business, new companies sprouting up, somebody making a breakthrough. Like there's so many fingers poking and prodding this thing. It's basically just like a big giant, vibration thing, as opposed to like
it's
one guy being
constantly
like,
changing.
ah, ah, can I hold, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, just set it on the ground, really. Like, just stop trying, like,
Why are
let
you
it be, and
holding
it
it?
will fix itself.
Throw it on the
Yeah.
ground. Get rid of it. Cast it into the
Mhm.
volcano.
Cast it into the fire. Isildur. Anyways.
True. Alrighty, the last point for the alternatives chapter, saying money should emerge from voluntary exchange rather than government decree. Kind of making a bit of a rather old school argument, saying that, like, look, people found a way to transact before governments existed, and they will find ways to transact even if governments cease to exist today. Just because your government deems it so doesn't make it good automatically. And that, again, making the idea, the will or the intelligence of the free market overall will figure out ultimately what is the best money. Alrighty, final chapter. Ending the Federal Reserve. This is a pretty juicy argument here, saying the Federal Reserve should be phased out rather than reformed. Kind of saying like this thing is rotten to the core, can't fix it. You're just gonna have to get rid of it. And he also does make a concession a bit, which is like, as much as the book is called "End the Fed," and we just believe it's kind of like taking the machete and chopping the snake's head off. He's saying realistically, you're gonna have to phase it out. You can't do it overnight, otherwise you're gonna get some really bad side effects. Also, free market banking and sound money would create greater stability. This was an interesting argument that he had, and a pretty decent quote. He was saying, the greater degree that people, the greater degree of freedom that people enjoy, the more secure is the money that they use. The quote on this one is kind of saying a bit of the opposite of how it comes out, which is that the more secure money people have, the more freedom that they will be able to enjoy, and vice versa, which is that if you don't have a secure money, the degree of freedom that you're going to be able to enjoy is inherently diminished. So, look, if you're making
Yeah.
the freedom argument, I get it. And I do think that that is one of the big arguments he does make in the book. And then just to follow that up, he says economic liberty requires monetary liberty. He actually in the book talks about saying to people, especially trying to like have a practical, tactical strategy of getting people on board with the platform, saying that like, look, if you enjoy religious freedoms, you kind of also need monetary freedoms to do so, because the money has tentacles into everything. And if you want to enjoy these freedoms, you have to have freedoms overall, including this area over here. I know you might be
Yeah.
focused on other things, but understand that the monetary side of it is inherently embedded in everything that you do and everything that you try to do. So you kind of got to get this one right, and not kind of, you have to get this one right in order for everything else to function properly.
And like the whole point of the final chapter, it's I don't know if you touched on this, but it's not about just like fucking all right, cut it off and it's done. It's like there's like a bunch of steps to this. It's a progression thing. The first thing you got to do is you got to teach people about it. You got to teach people about what is the Fed, how does money work, yada yada yada. Step one is education. Step two is like you got to pull back the curtain. You got to expose Dr. Oz as not being a big giant cloud of smoke guy. It's like, oh, it's a little dude pulling buttons and knobs on a computer. It's like a very real system, and this is how it works. And then after that, like it's allow people to have the freedom to do the things that they want. So like you don't have to use dollars. You can use fucking Bitcoin, or you can use sticks, or you can use chicken eggs, or you can use favors, or whatever, right? And then like allowing the stuff to compete, not having just a fucking uh not having just like a single, like, you guys are forced to use this currency everywhere, give people the options, and then making the government live with the reality of the situation. It's like, listen, if there is no Federal Reserve, then the government has to be smarter with its spending and stuff. So who the fuck knows? But that was like the steps, sort of, kind of, that he delineated. So
Fair enough.
Yep.
Alrighty. Tell you what. Do you have producer powers or do I?
Are you trying to block that dude?
Yeah. Look, I'll hit it real quick just to show him that it's stupid, but yeah.
Nah, I ain't even gonna give him the time of the day, other than mentioning that, like, there's someone on X that's talking right now, and that's it's amusing. So he has distracted, he's derailed us from the valuable thing that we wanted to do. All that I can do is star it for some fucking reason. Oh,
Oh, it's on
'cause it's
X. That's why you can't.
Yeah.
We'll figure it out eventually.
Mm.
Alrighty, tell you what. We will take this second to address the good folks in the audience. How about that?
Sure. Yes. Oh, yeah. It's time for the chat. Motherfucking shout outs, ladies and germs. Speaking of having obnoxious chat peoples, we have some people that are not
good folks.
obnoxious chat peoples. Go ahead, take it away, Zenith.
First and foremost, Mr. Slide 180 coming in here with the cheers. Good to see you, sir. Hope you're doing very well on a beautiful Friday. Up next, we got Arceus saying, Ben Bernanke. Thank you. That was the name that we were looking for. Much appreciated on that one. And then Just Live coming in here with some good ones. If you have to make threats to get money, you're a thief. Strong armed robbery.
Yep. Ooh.
Hard to deny it. And,
yes.
Well, yeah, it's kind of what the federal government does. But we establish the government as kind of like the necessary evil thing. Or I don't know if it's necessary evil. It's just a structure that people use. And if you have not great people using it, then yeah, it's more robbery as opposed to, I don't know, keeping a functioning government going.
Yeah.
And then I am unfamiliar with this one. Do you guys think that the coconut agent guy caught with 400 bars was legit, or think there's more to it? I had to do a quick Google search. Mr. Just Live, let me know if this is correct. But this is what I found. Saying that a former CIA officer accused of stealing 300 gold bars is detained with a top secret level clearance, has been accused of secretly stashing millions of dollars in gold bars in his home that he said he needed for work-related expenses, according to court documents and two people familiar with the story. He held a management position, was charged with criminal theft of public money in a complaint filed last week in the Eastern District of Virginia. Lawyer didn't comment. He was also accused of lying to his employer about his background for nearly 2 decades. CIA spokesperson said in a joint statement with the FBI that the FBI arrested the person after a referral from the agency. After the investigation identified potential violations of the law, the director, Ratcliffe, referred the information to the FBI for a law enforcement investigation. FBI is working closely with our partners at the CIA and Department of Justice as we continue to investigate this matter fully. We are committed to following the facts, ensuring accountability, and pursuing justice in accordance with the law. Let me know if I got that one right.
I got it right here. Here's what it is.
Campfire story.
It's a fucking campfire story, bro. It's not real. All that they have to do is tell you some shit happened, and now you're stressed out, and now your life is worse. And like, if you never knew about it, nothing would have ever changed in your life.
True. All right. Let me know if I got that story right.
You did. Hang on.
Right.
Let me pull up that story for everybody. Here we go. Bam. Right there. It's a campfire story, ladies and germs.
Gotcha.
Just like us. We're here telling you campfire stories as well. We've got the shiny lights under our faces, and
the Federal Reserve campfire story has been going for a hot minute now, and we continue to keep writing sequels.
Mm-hmm. It's a long campfire story. Ooh, we've also
got a few more coming in.
Yes, we do indeed.
Mr. Hexagon Lost in Asia saying, checking in. Good to see you, sir, with the 07.
Good to see you, sir. Hexagon Lost in Asia. Salute to all of our armed forces boys.
True. And I apologize. YouTube has absolutely jacked up your name. But 173U4Y saying amen. And I believe this
I think
is
it's Jemmy. I'm not positive, but it's got a J on it. So that leads me to believe it's Jemmy. Jemmy, if that's you, salute. If it's not you, salute anyways.
Pleasure to see you, Jemmy. I hope it is you.
Yep, I think so. Because it's a green J, and that's what I remember Jemmy's profile picture being. So YouTube might have changed the profile. Man, it is obnoxious how YouTube does the profile thingamajiggers, but oh well, it is what it is.
Fair enough. Alrighty, that does it for chat shoutouts. So
Chat monkeys.
it's question time, and
I've got
start off. Oh, go for it. What you got?
I've got a question for you, Zenith.
Oh,
Is ending the Fed tomorrow realistic?
no, it is not realistic for a handful of reasons. Number one, how are you going to do it? Nope.
It is not Jemmy. Apologies then, not Jemmy. We're thinking about you, Jemmy, and we're also thinking about you, 173U4Y. So
toss us a name you'd like to be called. We will refer to that.
Good to see you, 173. I like 173. That's a good name. That's what they wrote down.
There you go.
U4Y.
All right.
It's not realistic though, Z.
It's not realistic on a handful of levels. Number one, how are you going to do it? To do that, you would have to get it passed through Congress and signed into law by the president. Good luck doing that on any time frame shorter than 6 months, even with massive amount of support. Number two, ending the Fed, just straight up cutting it off. I agree with the good doctor from the book, which is that if you cut it off, this is a massively complex system. So if you do that, you are going to hit the machine with the biggest wrench it has ever seen, and there will be a ton of fallout and casualty as a result of it. I'm not saying it's not all deserved, because it's a largely artificial system that's been propped up, and in my opinion, it does need to be rebalanced to a degree. At the same time, though, the biggest cries that you would probably hear is something about, oh, the retirement accounts, oh, the old people, you're hanging them out to dry. And it's like, I hear you, but at the same time, it's like you guys, they realistically are the people that voted in the current system, voted in Social Security, all the retirement stuff done through the government, done through the Federal Reserve, propped up by businesses that have been definitely helped out to a degree by the era of cheap lending, especially in the last 10 years. Cheap lending, ever since pretty much when this book was written back in 2009, has largely fueled a lot of the stuff that we're dealing with, that we've been dealing with for the last 6 years. It's kind of crazy to say it's been 6 years since the old COOF thing going around, but yeah, realistically, that's what it is. And then additionally, if you do end the Federal Reserve, it means you got to figure out something else to do with the system. And yeah, whether it's who prints the nice $20 bills over there, or even just the big question of what is the dollar now, those are things you have to have answers to, and you have to have some pretty good answers to pretty quick, because otherwise, not just the US, but honestly, a lot of international economics is just going to fall apart immediately.
The question, I want to nerd out on what is this, if you have the patience for it. All right, I'm going to full screen myself here, and we're going to cover exactly what is this device that you guys see right here. So the Federal Reserve note is what it says up on the top. It says Federal Reserve note. Zenith, can you describe for me what a note is? Do you know what a note is off the top of your head?
I believe this is a promissory note. What
Correct.
This is it says that if you give me this, I will give you whatever is written on it in the amount that is written on it.
So this is essentially a receipt, right? So this is let me see if I can fucking set up my webcam so that we can see this in the light. Nope. Oh wait, I'll just angle my webcam up. There we go. Oh, you guys get to see my ships and cool hex stuff in the background. All right, so Federal Reserve note. So over on this side, you guys can see there's a seal right there. It says Federal Reserve System, United States. It also says this note is legal tender for all debts, public and private, signed by the Treasurer of the United States. Right? So there's a Treasurer of the United States. And then over here, there's also a Secretary of the Treasury. So what is the Treasurer of the United States and what is the Secretary of the Treasury? Those sound awful similar. Everything that happens on this side of the bill is having to do with the Federal Reserve. Everything happening on this side of the bill is having to do with the United States of America. So you see we've got the seal over here. It says Federal Reserve. We also have this seal over here. You can't I don't think my webcam will be able to show it to you, but it's basically like the seal of the Department of the Treasury, if I'm not mistaken, right? But it's the representation of the United States of America. So the United States of America is borrowing from the Federal Reserve 20 somethings. We don't know what those somethings are. And the Federal Reserve is like, okay, we got to keep track of this. So we're going to put a serial number on it, right? So this is a serialized receipt of debt. So the government said like, hey, I need some units, right? Print me up some units and I'll pay you back later. And so this is why like defacing currency is illegal, is because it doesn't belong to you. It doesn't belong to me. This belongs to the Federal Reserve, right? So if the Fed is ended tomorrow, what happens to this thing, right? Where does it go? What does it do? The only reason that this is valuable is because this is a promise from the government to give something to the Fed. And so the Fed says, hey, we'll make this for you, but you got to give us something later. All right. And in the meantime, you can give it out to all your little citizens. You can, we'll send it out to the banks. We'll give it to you in the form of your omnibus spending bill, right? We'll do this, that, and the other thing with it. So like banks can get these and the government can get these. And also you can get these as a I'm pretty sure that only banks and credit unions can apply for promissory notes. But basically these things are just an evidence of debt, right? So you get your evidence of debt, but it's from the government to the Federal Reserve. So like that's just like, if we end the Fed, then what happens to all of these? If we end the Fed without creating a replacement for these, then we're in a peck of trouble, right? So that's why there's like this several step process. I guess I'm sort of kind of unfairly answering the question that I asked you, Zenith. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to
What is
steal
money?
Yeah, what even is money? What happens to this stuff when you end the Fed? Like, we can't end the Fed. We cannot end the Fed tomorrow. So what's the first thing? What's the first thing that we got to do? What's the first thing that is like, whose job is it to change the world? Is it the government's job? Is it my job as an individual? Is it the people's job as a collective, right? Is it the smart people that know? Is it like who's the one that is responsible for making the world a better place? So like it's more of a philosophical, rhetorical question than
Well, I was
like
going to say the practical answer to your question is that this is a legal question and it's up to legal entities and authorities to solve. So
Yeah.
the question of the US dollar and the Federal Reserve, it's squarely up to Congress and the president to get something rolled out as a fix. But kind of as a side tangent to that, theoretically, could you fix this as an individual? Yes, if you got enough people to work together to start accepting something as payment.
Mhm.
As long as you see it as payment, it works. And as long
Yep.
as you believe you're getting a fair value and you have a secure source of money, it works. The only area that doesn't work is if one of those parties happens to be the federal government, because they believe that taxes should be paid in very specific tender and whatever you're using might not be on the accepted list. I do
Mhm.
believe they're starting to accept taxes in Bitcoin, but at the same time, if you're a Bitcoiner, odds are you have zero interest in giving Bitcoin to the government.
Yeah, I wouldn't do it.
Yeah.
Also, there's a whole argument to be made that's like, do you as a human man or woman owe taxes, or is it a separate thing that you represent that owes the taxes? And that's a whole other can of worms that we're not going to get into tonight. But
Pay your
definitely
taxes.
don't. Yeah, well,
Pay your taxes.
pay the stuff that you are legally required to pay.
There you go.
Yes. My advice is don't break the law. My advice is learn about the things that empower you. And if you realize that like my name is Will Stevenson, there is also an identical name that is registered in a database somewhere that also says Will Stevenson, that has a whole bunch of numbers associated with it. I think it's a 9-digit number.
Social security number, yes, it's 9 digits.
9 digits. Yeah, 9-digit. There's a 9-digit social security number, which is essentially a bank account, right? That is assigned to a fictitious legal entity. It's kind of like, you hear about social security fraud, right? If an old person dies and someone is still receiving social security checks, then what that means is that the social security account is not tied to the person or to the real life man or woman. That means it's a totally separate entity. It's a totally separate thing. It's a totally separate, like, whatever the hell. Like, I own and I have domicile and dominion over bank accounts, but I am not a bank account. So like if the bank account like goes default or something, then it doesn't affect me, other than like I can't use it anymore. But it's a totally separate thing than I am. And so like people's people's social security account is the thing that owes taxes. People's social security, like that separate identity, that separate thing that you're in charge of, and that you run, and that you that's how you are able to receive like direct deposit. That's how you're able to do banking. How you're able to apply for loans. All of these things is all tied to this separate fictitious legal entity, an ens legis, a creature of the law, that is like a sole proprietorship, or whatever you want to call it. It's all tied to this other thing. So if you as an individual are living on a pond and you're catching fish, then you don't owe taxes, because you're not interacting with the monetary system of which the sole proprietor or the social security number or any of these other things are tied to. But if you're going out and about and you're engaging in trade or business, if you're going about being an employee, you fill out a W-4, you say like yada yada yada, this, that, or the other thing, then like, hey, congratulations, now you owe taxes. So like learn about the system. Like that's why people don't go after, homeless people and throw them in jail for like tax evasion, because it's like they don't they don't have the social security number. They're not bought into the system. They don't have driver's licenses. They're not like registered in some big giant list of things. So there's I'm opening up an entire can of worms, and I need to bring it back to the Federal Reserve. But
Where you
like,
going with this, big guy?
yeah, I'm just kind of like spewing out information at this point. But basically the point is like pay attention to the taxes that you owe. And if you identify yourself as the same thing as a social security entity, then you owe taxes. So fucking pay them. And if you don't, then don't. And that is
True.
life.
By the way, keep in mind that the state of New York did actually charge the president with paying too much in taxes. So apparently that's a crime now as well. So
Yeah.
Wild.
Also, you can submit a FOIA request to the IRS, and you can say, "Hey, what do I owe? Please send me a bill." And then they will send you like a thing of like, you don't have to go and file your taxes every year. You can say, "Hey, IRS, what do I owe?" Now you have to like sit on hold, and you have to like call a special fax number, and you have to do a whole bunch of, you got to jump through a bunch of hoops, which is essentially just as difficult as filing taxes. So that's a thing that's also like you also have the ability, because the IRS already has all the information, right? So somebody made a joke
Directly.
about it, where it's like there's a magical number that you have to guess, and if you guess it wrong, then you go to jail. If you pay us the wrong amount of taxes, you go to jail. And we know what the number is, but we're not going to tell you. But they actually can tell you. You just have to request it. So it's just like a whole fucking
There you go.
process.
True. Alrighty. Question for you, good sir. What did you? We've covered a handful of books talking about the Federal Reserve at this point. What did you find unique or different about the approach from this book or any of the topics or subjects?
He specifically talks about the Federal Reserve using promissory notes. None
Okay.
of the other Federal Reserve books really talked about that. So at least to my recollection, I could be totally wrong about that, but like specifically that we do not engage in the usage of money as currency. We engage with fiat, and we engage with promissory notes. Promises to pay and orders to pay. So like that is what our monetary system relies on, is a promise from one entity to another entity to give them something at some point in time at a later date, and therefore that promise token, right, has value, and so we trade it around every single day. But the value of that promise diminishes because the government keeps making more and more and more promises all the fucking time to pay more and more and more money. And so it's like, how many promises can we make before the whole system collapses? And in the meantime, you have to deal with like where there used to only be 10 promises that were floating around in the magical economy. So every one person in the economy got one promise that they could trade between each other. Now there's 100 promises. So like, now your promise unit purchasing power, if you just took your one promise and you put it in the bank and that's all you ever had, like now you've been diluted by 9x or by 10x. So your the value of your one promise has gone down 90%, because like that's what happens to people that save during like inflation. Like if you're saving, then you're basically just losing whatever the inflation rate is, the actual inflation rate, not the reported inflation rate. Yeah, so that was the thing that I thought was unique about this book, is that Ron Paul mentioned like promissory notes specifically. So, what about you, Broski? What did you think was? Oh, and also I love Ron Paul. So like it's like I cannot get out of my mind the bad lip reading from Ron Paul when he was running for president. Do you remember those?
I don't
Bad
remember
lip.
seeing him for Ron Paul, but I'm familiar with the channel. Yeah.
Like the only thing I can think of when it comes to Ron Paul is free pineapples. You know, when he was like sitting next to the Liberty Bell. And anyways, so that was my first introduction to Ron Paul when I was a young lad. And ever since I learned who he actually is, like I can't like get that out of my head. So Ron Paul and free pineapples. But what about you, man? What was the thing that stood out to you about this book, about like instead of the other ones?
So for me, the biggest one actually came from Ron Paul, or Dr. Ron Paul himself, excuse me.
His eminence.
Which his eminence, the eminence, yes, the doctorhood. A lot of the other books that we've talked about, they either cursory touch on the Federal Reserve. Like I want to say Pirate Money did a pretty good job of explaining what are like the four types of money or the four functions of a currency.
Mhm.
And then some of the other books that we read, which is like In Defense of the Federal Reserve and The Creature from Jekyll Island, those are definitely historic retellings, and they're a lot more historic books. But because Ron Paul is actually was a legislator, I believe
Yeah,
he's
yeah.
out
He was
now.
in the Congress, I believe.
Yeah, and the fact that he
Or
actually
he was the
interacted
House.
he
The House.
interacted with the heads of or the chairman of the Federal Reserve at the time, and because he literally was in the legislative body that has power over the Federal Reserve, over currency, over creation of agencies, all that kind of stuff. This is a very unique perspective for me. And the other part is that he does bring his own bent to it, kind of like politically and philosophically, which is the libertarian argument. He talked about some of the stuff that we've heard before, which is that inflation is basically theft of people that are saving or trying to earn a living. That's not new at all. But I think specifically, he really goes pretty hard after the banks when it comes to the 2007 crisis, which obviously just happened and primed and triggered him writing this book. But also specifically, the section talking about war is a very unique libertarian argument that I hadn't heard before from any of the other ones. Granted, the other ones do talk about like endless government spending and the deficit that is enabled by the Federal Reserve. We cover that in this one as well. But he really draws it to some logical conclusions of like, if you give people the blank check to do what they do, they are going to do these things, especially if there's no consequence to it. And war, especially as we've seen the US engage with, because pretty much we had World War I, World War II, Korea, Vietnam, Desert Shield, Desert Storm, various operations in the in Central America and the Caribbean, Iraq, Afghanistan, and then now, not directly, but we have the Ukraine conflict and then also the Iran conflict going on right now. That's a pretty convincing argument, in my opinion, which is like, look, people have been very against this stuff. Granted, World War I, World War II, I think World War II was probably the more necessary one. Arguably, the US could have stayed out of World War I if it really wanted to. World would look drastically different if it did. But those two are really the two wars, in my opinion, that I think this argument is the weakest on. But all of the other ones, I think very much you can kind of tie the direct correlation between the ability to pursue these foreign interventions with the ability to spend almost endlessly at the behest of the Federal Reserve and a government that's willing to put them to the test to see how fast they can make the printers go. So for me, that was a very interesting argument that I think makes a lot of sense. Yeah.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
Put him to the test. How fast they can go.
Yeah.
I wonder like which like historically speaking, which government had the best money system for the longest, you know?
That's a fantastic question, actually. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Because like we're sitting here using this one right now, but it's like, was there a better one? Oh man. And like, how would you even measure that? You know?
How not surprised and how deflating of an answer would it be if we finally created the all-purpose, all-knowing AI and it just looks at you in the face and says, "Gold, you idiot. What are you doing?"
Yeah, it's like it's fucking gold. Yeah.
But gosh, as far as currency goes, I'm thinking back to Changing of the World Order by Ray Dalio.
Ray Dalio, yeah.
Yeah.
New World Order, maybe? Or no, that's a different thing.
Yeah, no. Changing the World Order. That one he talks about, there's kind of the cycles that go on and who was the dominating currency at the time. The Dutch had it for a while, then the British, now the US. and that's covers pretty much like 600 years of history right there. So if I had to bet, the answer to your question is going to be one of those three. I think argument for the Dutch is pretty good, but they definitely were just supplanted. They were surpassed by the British when the British Empire was really at the height of its power. And ultimately, the British Empire declined after World War I, after, Europe was devastated by 2 world wars. And then the US really rose out of it as a result.
Dude,
Which
I asked AI, and I got an answer that you will never guess.
the Aztecs.
Byzantine Empire's gold solidus and
Oh.
numisma system.
Why didn't I think about that? He actually mentions that exact thing in the book. It's
Yeah.
later on in the book, and it's for a brief chapter, but he actually does mention the Byzantine Empire.
Yep. Wow, 700 years. Yeah. So I have the chat GPT, the like I pay for it, so I've got the new thinking model, so it takes a little bit longer to give me an answer. But I said, historically, which government had the best money system for the longest time, loved by the most people? And it was like the Byzantine Empire gold solidus numisma system. For roughly 700 years, the Byzantine gold coin stayed remarkably stable in weight and purity, and it became one of the most trusted coins across the Mediterranean, Middle East, North Africa, and even to long-distance trade routes toward Africa.
Wow.
The solidus was 4.5 grams of high purity gold, and its reliability made it not useful just inside the empire, but internationally. And they had everybody knows this coin is good money. So that's pretty cool. It wasn't local. It had political credibility. It was trusted because it was boring. The government resisted the temptation to constantly dilute it, and people accepted it because they expected the same gold content tomorrow that it had yesterday. So, wow, that's pretty cool. Started in under Constantine in the early 300s, and then lasted all the way up to the 11th century. Wow. Oh, damn. The debasement started from the Roman and Byzantine stuff around the 11th century. Damn. So 700 years of cool gold stuff. That's pretty nifty.
I dig it.
Mhm.
Alrighty. I got 2 more big sections I want to cover with you for the
Oh.
show tonight before we go freeform.
Yes. Yeah. Sorry.
Number 1, you're good. That was a great answer. Great question. Great answer, by the way.
Mhm.
We could honestly do an entire show just on that, breaking down who had the best money and the worst money, honestly.
Yeah.
Like top 5 for each
Ooh,
side.
we'll
That'd
do
be
a
great.
tier list at some point, should we?
Yeah.
Should we do a
Yeah, we
tier
could.
list on monies?
It
Oh,
could
man,
be
I'm
a
gonna write that in my
historical episode
notes.
for sure. Alrighty. Question for here, though.
Yes.
Towards the end of the book, Ron Paul, I think, really gives the strongest part of the book when he comes up and actually proposes. He has 4 separate arguments for why you should end the Federal Reserve. The arguments are a moral argument, a constitutional argument, an economic argument, and a libertarian argument. I'm going to run through them real quick, and then there is the question at the end here. So first off, we have a moral argument against the Federal Reserve. He's saying that the Fed enables wealth transfers that would be considered unacceptable if it would be doing it openly. He argues that inflation is not merely rising prices, but the creation of new money. When new money enters the economy, those who receive it first benefit before prices adjust. Those who receive it later, such as savers, retirees, and wage earners, see their power reduced. He also argues that this is actually a hidden form of theft, which is that you have effectively traded your time, your sweat, your labor for a thing, and now someone is creating more of this thing out of the ether and just giving it to whoever they want. So it's almost just theft from the moral arguments standpoint. The moral argument really relies on the theft argument, which is like you are taking things from people against their will. You can try to argue that they've bought into the system, but realistically, no, they probably didn't, because this has been around longer than them. And it is also part of the federal government. And even through taxation and stuff, there's even more moral claims about reducing taxes, specifically death taxes, about like, look, you worked your entire life for this stuff to give to your kids. And now the government is just going to swoop in, step over your dead body, reach into your vault and take a nice gold bar out before any of your children even know, or well, they know it's there, but they also know that you are the one that took it. So that's the morality argument. Number 2 is the constitutional argument, saying that the Federal Reserve exceeds the monetary framework envisioned by the founders. And that is a very soft way of putting it. Dr. Ron Paul in the book says that this is explicitly unconstitutional. because the Constitution specifies 23 enumerated powers granted to the federal government. It does have the ability to collect taxes, and through the 16th Amendment, it was granted the ability to levy an income tax. However, I think Dr. Ron Paul would actually even have an issue with that amendment itself. But stating that this power is not granted to the federal government to create a centralized bank. That is explicitly not in there. And all along the way, the Constitution was just ignored, avoided, bastardized, whatever you want to say, to get it done. Specifically under the guise of the necessary and proper clause. The necessary and proper clause, for folks at home, is a clause added at the end of the 23 enumerated powers saying that the government can do what is necessary and proper to enact the 23 enumerated powers given to it by the Constitution. Over time and through Supreme Court rulings and stuff, that necessary and proper clause has been really expanded upon to the point where I believe there was a famous case where people in, I can't remember which state, they wanted to grow corn in their own backyard to use on their own farm to feed their animals. But the Supreme Court, or the suing body, deemed that that is actually outside of the law and you cannot do it because it deals with interstate commerce. And interstate commerce is one of the 23 enumerated powers of the Constitution. Therefore, they have the ability to tell you what you can do with your backyard growing corn for your own animals. That kind of stuff. And that was expanded to the creation of the Federal Reserve.
Man, from fucking corn to the Fed. It's interesting that they got into they found a way to turn that into interstate instead of intrastate. That is
I might be saying the wrong word here.
Yeah, because interstate is like between states, and intrastate is, or excuse me, intrastate, intra, I believe it's inside of one, and then inter is like between two, I think.
Yeah, so
if I'm not mistaken.
You are correct.
Whatever. Yeah.
You're correct in this case. So the wording might not be, but you're splitting it up into two things, which is exactly what people thought they were doing. Again, this is actually kind of relevant today because I believe this is exactly why Texas is claiming that they can manufacture their own suppressors, even though the NFA kind of prohibits it, as long as the suppressors are made in Texas, sold to people of Texas, and kept within the boundaries of Texas.
Correct.
Very similar argument. The purpose of the Constitution or the federal government is to ensure that interstate conflict is it's figured out by the higher power. The higher power in this case being the federal government. This is why you have stuff like the Supreme Court, district courts, local courts, that kind of stuff. Whenever there's an issue between those lower courts, it ultimately becomes a question for the Supreme Court, and similar cases with other state issues, which is that if there's an issue between the states, the federal government theoretically is the one that's supposed to solve the issue. So that's why you kind of get this stuff. Yeah. All right. Finishing up the constitutional argument. The author points to the constitutional provisions giving Congress authority over money and notes that the Constitution references gold and silver as legal tender, argues that the founders were deeply skeptical of paper money as they had their own crisis, and that central banking because of their experiences with inflationary currencies. In his view, the Fed represents a delegation of monetary authority to an unelected institution that the founders would not have supported. Alrighty. Number 3, the economic argument. The Fed is a major cause of economic instability rather than the solution to it. In fact, he goes as far as to say that the Fed is the one causing the problems in the first place. Drawing heavily from the Austrian School of Economics, Paul argues that interest rates are prices that coordinate savings and investment. When the Fed pushes rates below market levels, businesses and consumers receive distorted signals. The result is excessive borrowing, asset bubbles, bad investments, and financial crises. He specifically cites the Great Depression, the dot-com bubble, and the housing bubbles as prime examples of Fed-induced and Fed-created distortions and bubbles. Pretty much saying that, like, look, all of the ills that we've been dealing with, specifically that big one back in 2007, guess who's responsible for it? Banks and the government. And they're the ones that created and incentivized it, along with a lot of the other ones. Lastly, we have the libertarian argument, saying that centralized control of money is incompatible with individual liberty. He argues that money should emerge through voluntary market choices, just as goods and services do. He believes that no government agency should possess a monopoly over currency creation. The Fed gives policymakers enormous influence over credit, interest rates, banking, and economic activity. From a libertarian perspective, the concentration of power undermines free markets and individual choice. His preferred alternative is a free marketplace of competing currencies where people can choose dollars, gold, silver, or anything else that they decide. Alrighty, question for you,
Okay,
sir.
right.
I want you to rank those 4 arguments as the ones that you think are the most and least convincing.
Man, those were very long and extended arguments. Can you give me the TLDR of each one?
The moral argument.
Yeah.
It's kind of like if you thought taxation was theft, inflation
These guys are
definitely
stealing.
theft.
Yep.
Constitutional argument. The Federal Reserve should not even exist because it is well outside the bounds of the Constitution.
Yes.
Economic argument. All of the major issues that we've been dealing with for the last 100 years are the direct result of the Federal Reserve sticking their finger where it doesn't belong. And the libertarian argument, which is that the free market could solve this and the government is specifically prohibiting that to happen.
I would say that the highest one is the moral argument. The next highest would be the libertarian argument, and then the economic argument, and then whatever the fourth one. Oh, the Constitution.
Yeah.
I think did I cover all 4? We have the moral.
Yes, sir.
We have the
Moral, Constitution, economic, libertarian.
yeah. So moral first, libertarian next, constitutional after that, and then economic third, or economic
Interesting.
fourth.
Why
That's how I would rank them.
Why do you put them in that order?
So moral first, because the morality of it is the whole thing is like you're not supposed to harm people.
Don't steal from people. Yeah.
Because stealing is murder. That's essentially what stealing is. Stealing is removing someone's ability to live.
The
Like if I
logical
take your
extension
money,
of the deprivation of property could also be the deprivation of liberty and ultimately life. I agree.
correct.
Yes.
Yeah. If I take your goat and you use that goat to survive, then I've killed you. You know? If you're wealthy or whatever, then like I haven't killed you. So like but like the morality isn't based on the wealth of the person who is the victim. The morality is based on the fact that one person is doing harm to another. So like stealing at its, when you boil it down to the brass tacks, stealing is essentially, murder or like assault or something like that. So depending on the severity, stealing is assault. So like the government should not be assaulting its citizens. First and foremost. What were the other, man? Hang on. I'm gonna write these down. Hang on. I'm gonna pull up my little notes tab. So we have the moral argument. What was the libertarian one?
Free market should solve the currency thing, not the Fed.
Oh yeah. Yeah. So that's freedom, right? So the moral argument is don't hurt people. Bam. Don't hurt people. Bam. The next one is like the libertarian argument. Is like the free market will solve, which is like give people free will. If you're not giving people free will, then you're enslaving them, right? So like the first one is you shouldn't punch people in the face. The second one is you should allow people to pick the things that they do, right? So so that's like the next highest in like the hierarchy of like crimes that can be done against a person. Killing somebody is more severe than enslaving them, but like they're both bad. So I would say the libertarian argument is like don't enslave people. People. What was the third one? Economic, and then the fourth one was constitutional.
Yes.
Yeah. So like economic is like basically they did a bunch of bad shit and bad shit happened. So it's just like you give power to people, they're going to continue doing bad things. And so it's like, hey, do you want more bad things to happen? Give people that have a proven track record a bunch of power. A bad proven track record, give them a bunch of power, and then also have no accountability. So like
Brilliant.
yeah. And then the fourth one is like because it's like that in the Constitution. Okay, so like some people got together one time and wrote some good ideas down on a piece of paper. It's like I don't necessarily buy into the because it's in the Constitution thing, and like we as a country agreed on it 287 years ago. Like I don't think that is merit of itself. The merit is the actual ideas and stuff. So it's like using the like, oh, well, it's in the Bible. It's like, well, there's a lot of things in the Bible. There's fucking softcore porn in the Bible. So like, I don't want to hear this argument about like, oh, it's written down somewhere in this book, and so we should do it. It should be like it's based on the merits of the idea itself, and the merits are basically what are described in the other 3 things above. So it's essentially self-referential. So like, don't hurt people, don't enslave people. If you give people with a proven track record of power, and like like if you give people with a proven track record of bad decision making, if you give them a bunch of power, they're probably going to make more bad decisions, right? And then like all of the above. That's why I would rank it in the order that I would rank it, just based on my own personal interpretations. What about you? Would you do
Okay.
differently?
I think I would. So
Okay.
I think the constitutional argument is the weakest. The
Uh-huh.
reason I say that is that if you're making that kind of argument, you're really trying to just appeal to rules, and especially this rule, which has been, I say this with sorrow in my heart. I think the Constitution has been trampled on and will continue to be trampled on for a long time to come, and we are ways away from the founders' intent. I think because of that, it's the weakest argument, and the way that I'm framing these arguments is kind of like practicality or realistically, which is the one that's going to get more people on board with and makes the best arguments for it. So the constitutional one, this is lawyers arguing over stuff. And I think that, is it technically correct? Yeah, you're technically correct. But at the same time, the Federal Reserve was created over 100 years ago at this point, and you're not just going to end this thing that has become honestly kind of a bedrock. Granted, it was forced in there, but it has become a bit of a bedrock for international economics. So as much as I would love to get back to constitutional principles, I think that's not convincing.
Yeah.
The next one, I'm going to have to go with the libertarian argument. As much as I love libertarian ideals, and I do believe in the philosophy overall, I think that anytime you slap the libertarian term on stuff, it kind of gets laughed out of the room a little bit. And that is very unfortunately because I think the libertarian movement has absolutely devolved. Dr. Ron Paul was the greatest champion for libertarian arguments that we've ever seen. His best chance to have the libertarian moment was back in 2012, I want to say. And that was when we had the best chance of making it. And at the time, it still just didn't get ahead in American politics to the point where it was dominant. It was definitely a very strong force, as we saw through like the Tea Party and stuff back in like 2008, 2012. These are very these are core, fundamental, like American and constitutional ways of thinking. And it's definitely its own, not its own, but it's also very much tied with Austrian school of economics, with free market thinking, that kind of stuff. But I think that unfortunately the Libertarian Party itself has become largely irrelevant. So that's going to be a big hurdle anytime you put that label on it. But at the same time, trying to convince the public that, yeah, let's just have an open marketplace of currencies and see what happens. That is a big ask. And I think there's going to be a lot of doubt with it. And currency particularly, I think having stability with it is something that people value almost above everything else. So saying that we're just going to kind of try to figure out a way to get this free marketplace and everything's going to be shifting, it's kind of the thing where it's like people, especially with money, they want money to be money and they don't want to have to fuss with it because they're fussing with everything else.
They don't want to change it. Yeah.
That too.
You don't change it. There was somebody I was asking somebody one time when I worked in an armory why we didn't switch from the M16 to like a better weapon system. And it's like basically in order to switch something that already works, that you have an entire training system built around, you have an entire logistics system built around, that everybody who already has it already knows it. It's like the thing has to be like 3 to 10 times better than what we already have in order to justify all of the work that would take to switch it. And it's like people don't want to change. They don't want to change their money system.
There's more of a cost than just changing out the thing. There's all the other things that are tied to it that you've already built out.
I have a hole to poke in your libertarian. Like, what if it was called something else instead of like libertarian as the party, just like about the idea of liberty or the idea of freedom, you know, like,
No, I hear you.
Libertarianism as a party, I totally agree. It's fucked. And like, part of me thinks that like there's more true libertarians if you look at the ideals and the principles than there are Democrats based on the principles, than there are Republicans based on the principles. My argument is that
I'm in complete
everyone's
agreement with you, by the way.
yeah,
which is like
everyone's a libertarian. They just don't know it. You know,
Yeah.
that's my and you know, like the Libertarian Party. It's like, fuck. Well, it's a bunch of goofballs and they kind of suck. And part of me thinks it's a psyop. Part of me thinks that it's like it's not like, because you look at the Liberty Party down in Argentina, where it's like Javier Milei, and like their version of liberals is much different than our version up here of liberals. And you know, it's like the word liberal and libertarian are supposed to mean the same thing, But in the States, they've taken a totally different meaning because the language is bastardized and the meaning of the words has shifted, and the zeitgeist that surrounds the words are totally, totally different. You know, like if you say the Spanish word for black while you're like on YouTube or something, then you'll probably get some sort of strikes and people will come after you and create clips because it's culturally unacceptable to
Yeah.
say certain words. So like you tie that whole idea in with the libertarianism, and the party unfortunately being misaligned with the idea that is the true like libertarian ideals of don't enslave people. It's like that's I think we're on the same page there. So
Yeah,
I just
I
wanted
will
to
say that is a very accurate critique, though, which is that part of my argument against the libertarian argument, pardon the word salad there, but it's that I'm trying to take everything in totality, and especially in the United States, the libertarian label, I think, has gotten a bad rep. Like you said,
Oh,
though,
yeah.
libertarian ideals, fantastic, and even the Liberty Party down in Argentina, I'm a big fan of what Javier Milei is doing.
Oh, yeah.
Granted, I think it's possible to do that here in the United States. Unfortunately, not, and that's just due to the legal political structure that we have, which is that the position Javier Milei has down in Argentina, he's a lot more ability and power to do all that kind of stuff. As opposed to the United States, the presidency is a lot more reined in and can't kind of just like, believe me, if I wish he could just like Thanos snap away half the agencies, but unfortunately can't really do that. You need Congress to do that. So
it would be nifty.
All right,
A
final
girl can
two.
dream. Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
Girl dream, baby. Oh my
Yep.
gosh.
So at the bottom you got constitutional, then under that you got libertarian. Which one you got second from the top? Are you economics more important or are you morals more important?
As far as what do I think is the more convincing argument, I
Yeah.
think the economic one is the more convincing argument. And I
Really?
say that because the moral argument I find entirely solid, which is that inflation is effectively theft through just outgrowing people's things that they've been trying to save. It is corroding the thing that you have in a different way, that just because you believe it's addition, you don't believe it's subtraction. But in reality, it is actually subtraction, or rather division, if you will, because you're diluting it by dividing it through the entire supply of the money.
Yeah.
The moral argument of like, don't steal from people. Yeah, that should be a fundamental thing. Unfortunately, we also live in a crazy era where I can't believe I'm saying this. I'd have to convince people of that, which is like, there are, especially in American politics right now, trying to convince people that no, you shouldn't just like steal from people. I can't believe I'm saying this, but like that is a legitimate thing that we've had to contend with over the last like 2 decades effectively. But also I think that once you start going down the moral road, you have to appeal to a moral authority. Granted, it's very easy to point to a religious authority where they explicitly say thou shalt not steal. But at the same time, I also do think there is a strong foundation in natural law, which is saying that like you said earlier, if theft of property ultimately taken to its extreme can be theft of life. And I hear that. But I also just think that at the end of the day, this is just good salesmanship. And that's where the economics argument comes in. The best way to sell people on this and be like, look, are you suffering? Do you have pain right now? You know what's the easiest, most efficient solution to get rid of it? Kick this thing out of the government and burn it at the stake, metaphorically. Like, get rid of this thing as quick as you can.
That's a good that's a really good spin. I like that because if you're trying to use this ranking system to convince people, you're definitely not going to get them on the authority or on the morality one. You're going to get them on the economics. Yeah, 100%. Like people are like, if you start bringing up morals and things, and people go like, oh, I don't want to listen to you anymore. It's like, oh, you should do this thing because it's wrong, or because it's bad, or because natural law, or because Jesus or Buddha or whatever the fuck, because my dad said so. Right. But if you say economics, then it's like, oh, now you're speaking my language, baby. Now you're talking about like how this stuff has to do with me. And I like me a lot. So like, tell me more about these incentives.
It's not just the sales aspect though. I think logically, this is also one of the most consistent and easily applicable arguments that he has, which is look, the Federal Reserve was created to avoid boom and bust cycles. The Federal Reserve exists currently creating boom and bust cycles. Get rid of the thing. It is not working.
Yeah. Yeah. Hey, look at that.
Oh gosh. Yeah. I also like I don't know if it falls into economics more of constitutional, but the fact that it is so secluded and so private, I think is also a massive, massive argument against it. I don't really know which one that falls into, but I think that that is also a large issue, which is like, look, this thing was created by Congress and was supposed to be overseen as a federal agency by the presidency, even though that was explicitly written out of it. But those two bodies are the ones that do have ultimate authority over this thing. And those two bodies have no ability or a very minimal ability to even see what they're doing, let alone audit the thing. As a result of that, it's like this thing is operating as almost a rogue entity. Granted, it does operate within political bounds, and people have to get confirmed to be the Fed chair and stuff like that. But at the same time, it's pretty much as close as you can get to without the Federal Reserve just kind of being off the reservation doing whatever they want.
Yeah.
And if you've been paying attention to the conferences that we've been dissecting, on his days out, Jerome Powell was really beating the drum for Fed independence, and it's like, I understand the argument you're making, which is that politicians are bad with monetary policy, as has been demonstrated by the $37 trillion debt that we have. But at the same time, ultimately, politicians are the ones with the ability to rein it in, or that are responsible for reining it in, even. I'll go as far as to say that. Which, by the way, this leads me into another question that I have here for you.
Okay.
Looking at
we have a question from the audience I want to get to whenever we're free from Arceus at 9:12 Eastern. So I don't know if whenever there's a good point for that.
Tell you what, let's hit that now because it's actually kind of relevant. So coming to us from Arceus, if you could change 3 things about the Fed, either regarding how it operates or how it's set up, what would you choose?
What would I choose? 1, make it all public and all
entirely transparent.
Remove the curtains. Bring in accountability. Bring in because if we don't know what's going on at the Fed, and they have carte blanche to do whatever the fuck they want and tell us what they're doing in their little press releases. So step 1, make everything transparent. Step 2, and that includes the owners of the Fed, right? So the Fed is private. So who owns the Fed? It's mostly, I think, Bank of America, something.
JP
I don't know.
Morgan Chase.
JP Morgan Chase. It's the big fucking conglomerates of bad guys that we all know and love, that are gonna pump our bags and definitely not bring us into a 20-year bear market. But it's so transparency. So I guess you can include that transparency of ownership, right? So to bring in some system of accountability, one of the things that happened in Iceland during the financial crisis of 2008 was, and this was more on the private sector. This wasn't having anything to do with the Federal Reserve, but in Iceland, you know what they did with the bankers that caused the crisis?
Right to jail, directly to
right, straight to jail. They went straight to jail. So they did a bunch of bad shit and they went to jail. So I'm not saying that we should throw the Fed people in jail, but there needs to be some sort of accountability for the things that they're doing. There needs to be some sort of whatever the hell. So transparency, accountability, and freedom for people to choose if they want to use it or not. Right now on these promissory notes, it says this note is legal for all debts, public and private, right? So that means that these guys have guaranteed, you have to take these things if somebody tenders it, right? And if somebody tries to tender it and you disregard it, if you dishonor the tender, then it's counted as the same as if they did give it to you. So if I put a $20 bill on your desk saying, hey, I would like to buy this thing that you're selling me, here's $20, and you're like, oh, we don't accept cash, then it's okay, and I take my $20 back and I walk away with the item because I tried to give you the legal tender for the thing and you refused it. So you can try and enter into a lawsuit, but it's you will lose because the currency was tendered and refused, and there's only certain circumstances in which currency can be refused. So what was I saying?
transparency,
accountability, and freedom to choose other things. So I guess this wouldn't really be about the Fed, but it'd be allow other options to exist, and maybe not be given legal recognition, but not make it like pull the stops Don't make it so that we have to use the dollar reduce. We could use whatever the fuck we want. So those would be my 3 changes, and I'm just kind of pulling that off the top of my head. The biggest one would be the transparency one. And I don't know if I would want them to be public, like elected officials or whatever. I don't think that that's necessarily the best idea. I think it's fine the way that they do it now if they're appointed, cool beans. But like, I don't think that like getting votes or winning popularity contests or whatever, because that just turns into a big game of bread and circuses. Like, let the competent people do it. Similar to like the justices. It's like, okay, if you're a competent justice, then you get appointed to the judge seat and you get approved by the Senate and yada yada yada. There's this whole process thing. It's like, I don't have a problem with that as of now. But yeah, accountability, transparency, and give me don't stop me from using more options if I want to use more options. If I want to transact in chicken eggs, then I'll transact in chicken eggs or something, So yeah. What about you, Z? What would be your 3 changes? I guess I really only have 2. If we don't want to count the third one, but
I'll tell you this though, I'm right there with you with number 1, which is transparency. I think the blanket of secrecy and the camouflage that they've created has allowed them to operate unscrutinized by the general public and also by the people in charge of holding them accountable. So no more closed room meetings. In fact, anytime we have those FOMC meetings, I want that thing live streamed, baby.
Yeah.
And additionally,
everything the Fed does on the blockchain.
Correct.
Something.
Maybe not that, but at least open and recorded for the public to view.
Yep.
Also for Congress to view. Additionally, I think that as part of the transparency thing, trying to raise awareness about the Federal Reserve, not because I think they're doing a great job, but because I want more people to be aware of how terrible the job they're doing. Like whoever's in charge, I want them to be just as famous as any other member of elected Congress, if not even more so. That's the transparency part.
C-SPAN for the Fed.
Pretty much, actually. Yeah, that's like literally if you had to implement it tomorrow, it's that. Go put a C-SPAN camera in the room. Boom, done. Number 2, this one's going to be a little arguably specific.
Sure.
By law, have a minimum reserve ratio requirement for banks. The bank.
Oh, fuck. That's a good one. Because we don't
like
anymore. That. It's gone.
Yeah, because we don't. So it's the era of free money. And guess what? The era of free money has caused a lot of the issues that we've seen and caused a lot of the issues leading up to this as well. Because there's no minimum reserve requirement for the banks, they can pretty much just operate without one. So
actually, I don't think it happened during Trump, but I don't think it was a result of Trump. So
I'm pretty sure it was COVID time.
Yeah, it was 2020 is when it happened. Is when the change from I think it was 2% before it was 0%. It's like the banks have to have 2% reserve of the currency that they lend out and everything. So it's just like fucking us, bro.
True.
Now it's 0. Infinite money. You can start a bank and have nothing in your vault, which is fine. Like it's all promissory note. It's all just receipts for debt from someone else anyways. So
there you go.
Whoop-de-doo.
The last one, like you, I'm a little kind of iffy on this one because I think the answer would be get rid of the Fed's power to set interest rates. What that would look like in practice or the secondary effects
I like that.
Removing their ability to set the interest rates and just letting the free market do it. I think that, yes, the free market is going to be much better at doing so, but you got to remember what is the purpose of that interest rate. That interest rate is not the rate that you and I pay for our house loans or anything like that. That is the prime rate that the biggest of banks, like pretty much exclusively like the top 5, have access to when it comes to lending requirements with the Federal Reserve. Granted, this one, the reason I say I'm the most iffy on this one is it could be a monkey paw. It could be the finger curling in the worst way that I want, which is that if it's set by the free market, what is preventing the largest banks in the Federal Reserve from colluding and just setting their interest rate at 0? So that's why I say that. Yeah.
Yep. I do like that though. That's a good one. That's good. I will totally switch out my third one or whatever it was for that. I'm right there with you.
Yeah, you like that reserve ratio one too. I got you with that one. That was a good one.
Yeah, dude, that was good. I didn't think about that. Like I that's definitely been something that I've thought of a lot, and I've mentioned it like at least a half dozen times in the DRT show, like throughout the years. But like, yeah, man, like that's a good one. That reserve ratio.
True.
Why not be 100%? Why not be 100?
Oh, you mean like what they're making decentralized exchanges do with stable coins? Imagine that.
Hey, yeah, fucking imagine that. Stable coins, you have to be collateralized, but like, oh, these banky boys, dude, you can be like 98% bullshit, no problem. Like,
pretty much.
100% bullshit now. When it first happened, like it was like it was like 60% or something, and then the number just keeps going down, 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 down. The amount that they have to keep in reserve, and it's like, whatever, man.
True.
Just imagining like New York, with like New York Bank with like a big fucking steel vault at the bottom, and it's like, oh, we got to go increase the vault size because we have more people that are putting money in the bank. So
We gotta get space for all this cash we're gonna have to hold. Yeah.
yeah,
Alrighty.
well, it doesn't
I
all have
got
to be cash. It could be, certificates of cash or something.
could be that as well. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. I have two little parts of the book that I want to cover real quick with you. These are
Mhm.
some of the more interesting tidbits, and these are two of the interactions that Dr. Ron Paul had with two of the Fed chairs. Number one is going to be Alan Greenspan. The other one is going to be Ben Bernanke. So Ben Bernanke, the interaction that he had, pretty much saying that Ron Paul asked him, like, fiat currencies have a 100% track record of failing. Why are we different? And Ben Bernanke's argument boiled down to saying that the US has not had that happen with the dollar, despite being a fiat currency, because we are not a commodity backed currency. But at the time, under his leadership, he said that the Fed tries to imitate a commodity backed currency. Do you think that that's a decent argument or an accurate description? Or that's kind of just like
For the dollar,
Yeah.
I don't know that we imitate any sort of commodity backed. Like, I don't know what that means. It's like,
Not through, I don't think he was saying through structure, but I think he was saying through action at the Fed, which is that they're trying to split the baby, so to speak, which is that they want to exist as a fiat currency. But I think the acknowledgement in this interaction is saying that we understand that fiat currency sucks, but it's the one that we got because we tried solving a bunch of crises, whether it was back in 1936, whether it was 1970 with the Britain, coming off the gold standard and the exchange rate stuff. It's like, I will grant them a little bit of grace, which is like, at the time, I'm sure you guys were probably trying to make the best decisions you could, given the limited amount of information you had at the time. And we're looking back with all the hindsight now. But saying that we're trying to operate is an imitation of a currency, not by the way that they have it in structure, but by the way that the Federal Reserve is acting, which is that it's only a little bit of fiat. We're trying to kind of keep that illusion that there is some inherent value behind it, but we are still trying to do the Federal Reserve stuff, which is have a very flexible currency.
I mean,
You're looking at me with a lot of doubt, which is okay.
I think that answer's bullshit. Then, if that's what good old Benny Blanco from the Bronx Bernanke was talking about, I think that's a hang on, where's my campfire?
That's
my
fair.
campfire image. Yeah,
I think
it's
your
just,
reaction actually leads very well into the second interaction that we had, this one with Alan Greenspan. And Alan Greenspan's kind of answer to this one for Dr. Ron Paul is he was saying that the members of the Federal Reserve understand that they are the thing preventing that hyperinflationary disaster, and that the future and destiny of the US dollar depends on their own good stewardship. They acknowledge that it is a fiat currency. And I think there's even a tacit acknowledgement that this is a very dangerous thing they're playing with, but they think that they're able to do it well and that they're able to stave off disaster. Pretty much it boils down to saying that, like, Alan Greenspan is saying, like, look, yes, at the Federal Reserve, we understand that theoretically, if we don't have good stewardship, we could absolutely destroy this thing. But we're public servants. Why not trust us? Don't you believe that we're good and knowledgeable?
Yeah, we're dripping this poison very, very slowly. We haven't broken your legs. Come on, man. Come on, man.
Yeah.
Bullshit. Not bullshit. Just very slow bullshit. It's like bullshit that takes a long time to accumulate.
Yeah,
we just happen to be at the tail end.
True. For this one, I had a little bit of like my own thought process that went on with this.
Tell me your thought.
Because immediately I was like, yeah, you tell him, Dr. Paul, you tell him that we don't trust single men to handle entire systems. And then I was like, all right, am I going too far with this? And I was like, maybe a little bit, because there are some things in life that we do leave. We hope that people are trying to have good stewardship of. Granted, it's a lot closer to the individualist level, where it's like talking about like your family, your company, your school, your town, things where you can actually know people. It's like, okay, there is a degree of we have to trust people at a certain point. And at the same time, I also understand, I have that gut reaction, but I also know that at a large level, men are fallible. Either that or we just don't always come up with the correct answer. And in this case, this is a group of so many people at the Fed that are in charge of economic policy in the US that will ultimately drive economic policy for the entire world. And we could put all those people on the same school bus. Like, for me, it was kind of like this balancing point of like, okay, I understand like the libertarian argument of we don't want to trust men because men are fallible. We want to trust the overall wisdom of the market and that kind of stuff. But at the same time, we do have to trust somebody somewhere. Otherwise, we're not really going to get that far.
Yeah. I suppose it is a balance, isn't it? It's like if you have the wrong people in power and you don't trust them, then like, oh well, you're fucked. And if you're too slow and decentralized, then you're also fucked on the opposite side of the coin, right?
Yeah. Similar to the point that you raised when we actually had the question from Arceus about the changes you would make, and you actually reeled yourself back. You were like, maybe we should have direct election to the Fed. And you were like, nope, I don't want that actually. I had a very similar thought process as well, which is like, could we just elect people? And then I was like, nope, direct democracy is a terrible form of government. And I imagine it would
popularity contest.
It would also be a terrible form of monetary policy.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. But I understand the argument that they're making, which is like they're trying to do the best that they can and they're trying to get the best people into the same position. But I think especially over the last like 30, 40 years of politics, we've seen that people have started to deviate into some very different camps and we have very different philosophies. Back in like the 1960s, maybe 1950s, where a lot of people were a lot more on the same page than we are today, I think this kind of thinking made more sense. But where we are today, where we have stuff like with the SEC, which is we're under Gary Gensler for crypto stuff, and he's just absolutely going after people with a hatchet. And then we get the new guy in, apologies, I can't remember his name right now. I've talked about it a million times. Paul Atkins. Thank you.
Okay,
Thank
yeah.
you.
Atkins,
Thank you, Brian.
Yeah.
And then Paul Atkins gets in, and now crypto is ushered in with the warmest welcome they could possibly have. It's that kind of stuff. But imagine that with the Federal Reserve, the thing that's trying to underpin all of the economy, going one step from we are hammering inflation, and then the other one is nope, we want to fund a war, print the money.
You turn off the hot water in the shower and now it's freezing fucking cold. It's like, oh Jesus, wow, shock the system, you know.
Yeah. It's like I understand what's going on here. I understand the arguments, but I also exist in the year of our Lord 2026, and I kind of just don't trust these arguments anymore. Sure, we can have a fiat currency. You can try to imitate that commodity-backed currency all day long, but at the end of the day, it's still a fiat currency. It's not going to fail because it's called a fiat currency. It's going to fail because it acts like a fiat currency. And at some point, somewhere down the line, we are going to go too far over the edge and we will not be able to come back from it.
Yep.
Additionally, the stewardship that goes into it again goes back to the idea, even the idea that Dr. Paul in the book talks about, which is like, why mandate a currency when you just have the collective intelligence of the free market figure out what's the best one by offering either the fastest, most stable payment processing or the one that is the longest track record, the most secure, the most stable, that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. It's saying that, like, yeah, look, you can try to figure this out yourself, but ultimately, no matter how hard you try, no matter how smart the people are, they're limited in their resources as opposed to the giant collective hive mind that is the overall markets.
And like, yeah, and it's like, it's less of a hive mind. It's more of just a speed of implementation, and the things that don't work fail. And so it's like, you know, it's like, imagine you're constantly like the accuracy of firing a single shot versus sitting behind, you know, a sea whiz and throwing 3,000 bullets at something. It's like, oh, I can see exactly where I'm not hitting the target because I've got this line of tracers. So I'm just going to, you know, move the gun over till it's on target. That's the free market. It's just throwing out so much information that it becomes accurate very quickly. Whereas like, it's like, oh, one shot. Oh, fuck. Okay. Now I make my adjustments. One shot again, you know, just fucking to put it in ballistics terms. That's a good answer, bro. I like that.
Alrighty. Final question here for you.
Final question.
Alrighty. The book was written in 2009. Famously, the entirety of cryptocurrency history has happened post the finishing up of this book. Yeah. So we do have a little bit of a track record from Ron Paul about how he feels about cryptocurrency, but I want to get your take about how you think his view of cryptocurrency would be as a result of what he's talked about in the book. So I'll give you the quick history real quick. 2013, 2014, famously, bit of a skeptic. He said if it was interesting, but wasn't convinced it would be the money of the future. 2017 and 2019 started to actually be a little bit supportive from the idea of monetary competition, because that's where it is. We have the new thing that can actually compete with the dollar.
That's what
2020 to presently, he actually became strongly pro Bitcoin as a Fed alternative. He repeatedly argued that Bitcoin emerged because people are losing trust in fiat currencies. The Federal Reserve money creation validates the original concerns he had in this book, and that Bitcoin is a part of a broader movement towards monetary freedom and competition. The only big thing that he's really talked about is also CBDCs. He says it's one of the largest concerns he has with cryptocurrency. Argues that it would increase government surveillance, allow greater control over individual financial transactions, and move monetary systems further away from individual liberty. And these are all very familiar points that we've covered a lot of times. So does this make sense? Is there anything that you think that kind of fits in with his frame of thinking that he might not have gotten to yet? What do you think?
I think he would not like Hex. I think he would not like it at all with the staking and the minting and the well, he wouldn't like the inflation aspect of it. He might like the sovereignty aspect of it. But like thinking about like, oh, you run your own code, you do your own thing, like that'd be cool. But the fact is like, oh, one player has 95% of all of it. And they're pretty cool. It's like, yeah, you're not decentralized. So like, I don't think he would like the thing that I'm currently fond of because I drink the Kool-Aid. I think that there's like
Let me both, brother.
yeah, I mean, hey, fucking I bought a thing, so now I am very much invested in it, Just like you sacrifice a lot of value for something, then there's an equal side of that like of that value. It's like imagine like, you God forbid, you killed a family member to get more of this good stuff. It's like whatever value and something that family member had for you, now it exists on this other side of this other thing. So you've traded your mental value of one thing for another. So, because I've drank the Kool-Aid and he is not, he would probably be like, oh yeah, that's centralized. There's one dude who has all of it. Like, nah, that's not the way to do it. But like I do think that your analogy was pretty spot on, like skeptical at first. Like that's basically what I was gonna guess, because I don't know what Ron Paul's positions are, but I would have guessed he would have been skeptical at first. And then
completely understandable, by the way, and a very logical thing to do, which is
yeah.
someone promises you that this thing is going to be the magic wand that cures all the monetary problems.
Yep.
Yeah, you better give him a side eye at first and be like, what do you really got going on?
Well, and here's the thing, like in the beginning, it wasn't used for curing all the monetary problems. It was like used for getting drugs on the dark web and for like, fucking doing cool, like a very libertarian, anarchistic, like stuff, which is all like that's all part of the ethos that is behind Ron Paul. Like Ron Paul's not an anarchist. Ron Paul is not like buy drugs and guns on the dark web. He's about freedom. He's about do the things that you want to do. He very famously during one of his talks, somebody asked him, should they legalize heroin? And he was like, hey, if heroin was made legal tomorrow, how many in the audience, by show of hands, how many of you guys would go out and start slamming it? And then fucking the entire audience laughed because they realized like it was during one of his debates with another libertarian guy. And I think the other libertarian guy like brought that up. And it's like, it's not about whether the thing is like, people aren't doing it because it's legal or it's illegal. People are doing it because they want to do it. So just like allow people to do the things that they want to do, and they're going to make their own best decisions. Same thing as the free market, So like, in regards to cryptocurrency and everything, I think that like what you were talking about was pretty spot on. Like he would be totally against CBDCs, which is very real, very, very real problem that could be happening with the crypto space. And sounds like he's pretty down for Bitcoin, which I would have guessed, and maybe he would have like a younger Ron Paul perhaps would have been more into the guns and drugs and dark web stuff. But like he's in his 90s right now. It's like,
he was born in 1936. In his book, he was talking about living through World War II. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm sure that he's interested in the principles, if not the application of things. So yeah. What about you? What do you think?
I think that based on the research I did and his journey into crypto, I think it makes sense. The CBDCs fits squarely into the freedom aspect and also squarely into the bad money perspective as well. As far as the skepticality, yeah, makes sense. Completely understand it. But I think that the big one for me is that I think he'd be very happy and is very happy to see that there is actual. I think prior to the creation of Bitcoin, the idea that there would be actual competition around some form of money was almost crazy to think of. But now we live in the crypto era where it's never been easier to make a cryptocurrency. Granted, it's still very hard to make a good one, but it's never been easy to make one. So I think the competition is very much in the free market thinking ideas. At the same time, though, I think, look, I'm not saying he'd be mad, but he'd be very disappointed about what we've done with crypto until this point. Which is like, you guys could have created the greatest thing the world's ever seen, and instead you ended up trading shit coins in monkey JPEGs. Really?
Yep. It's like these monkeys are given all these beautiful artistry tools, and they end up just like throwing shit at each other. It's like, damn. Oh well.
Yeah. Honestly, though, I think support of Bitcoin makes total sense, and I think that Ron Paul, based on everything I've read, I would love to talk to the guy, but I think that he would actually probably surprise some folks about his stance on crypto, which is that I think his desire is to see a better money. His desire is not to see gains. So honestly, I think he'd be kind of coin agnostic. The thing he'd really focus on is what does he believe actually is the best one that that treats people the best and gives them the best value for it, and is the most stable and secure. Because one of the through lines throughout the entire book was the security of the money is the thing that allows people to be free. So the way that it is, I bet the guy would have been right in there during the small versus big block Bitcoin debate, and then ultimately where we are now, which is trying to figure out what are we doing with this? Is Bitcoin a store of value? Is it a thing that we want to be able to transact with? And I think at the end of the day, he just wants something that is the most secure. So if I had to give you the Ron Paul coin, it would probably be something that is probably closer to Bitcoin in structure when it comes to the release schedule and the amount that will ever be created, because very clearly the guy's against inflation. So I think, like you mentioned, the whole inflationary part of Hex, he would see Hex as more of an investment vehicle than a reliable transaction token.
Yeah.
So something that is a limited supply, very limited or no control, like very closed code, like once it's out, it's locked, that kind of a thing. But at the same time, I think he would also recognize maybe the need to either migrate to new tokens when possible if old tech becomes outdated. Like, I don't know, maybe one day in the future we figure out quantum computing and it cracks the Bitcoin encryption stuff. So stuff like that. But yeah, I think for me, he'd be very coin agnostic and very much be focused on the fundamentals about what makes a sound money that is easily transactable for the most amount of people with the most amount of freedom.
I think so. Yeah, it'd be utility based.
I dig it.
Yep.
Yeah.
Hell yeah, broski.
Awesome. Alrighty, that is all I got, good sir. Do you have any good questions for me?
Oh man, what was your favorite part about the book?
I really liked the interactions with the Fed chairs. We've spent a great amount of time scrutinizing the word of Fed chairs ourselves, and to hear the words of the guy that actually got to sit in the room, be the man in the arena, and actually go toe to toe with these guys, and do it in a very respectful manner as well, but also trying to get his point across and do his job.
He was definitely trolling them a little bit.
Yeah, a little bit. So I like that. This is the biggest thing for me, is that the guy's done things. He's very learned, very experienced, very credentialed and all that stuff, but he's also been there and he's done so much. So to hear his perspective on all this stuff that we've really just been talking about from either a historical perspective or us in current day, just ranting against whatever the current thing is, I think he's lived through a lot of these things. He's seen a lot of things, and he's seen how it's been run very poorly the entire time.
Mm-hmm.
The perspective on this one, honestly, is the thing I like most about this book.
Hell yeah. I like it. I like it.
What about you? Favorite part, favorite aspect?
Oh, I felt so vindicated when he started talking about promissory notes, like, because it's like it's been my, like, I've stopped paying attention to crypto news because it just hurts and it sucks, and it's like fucking I'm not gonna do that. So I've been literally just like nose to the grindstone in the world of negotiable instruments, promissory notes, litigation stuff, a bunch of things, like all the stuff that I was going on my little autistic rants earlier with, like, the ens legis and the fake entity that exists that is your social security that it is a person. It's not a corporation, I don't think, but it's a person under the law that's totally like a separate thing from you. I've been going ham on learning all that stuff, and just so to hear Ron Paul talk about like that, how it has to do with the Fed, it was like, oh yes, this is like new information. Like this is stuff that I've been studying for the last 9 months, and it's like, oh, this is really cool to hear. One of the most important um like teachers that I can think of in my life, talking about a thing that I've been studying. It's like I feel vindicated. So that was mostly a selfish emotional thing that I couldn't get past, and so that's definitely my favorite.
Fair enough. I'll tell you this much. It was a great recommendation. I'm very glad we got to it. And I also really appreciate that he fit the entire book within 6 hours. It is tight, it is compact, and it is thorough. And those are the kind of books I like the most.
Yep. That's so like for the folks at home who don't know, I'll give you guys a little bit of inside baseball. Zenith hit me up on, what was it, Wednesday night? Or no, it was Thursday night. You're like, hey bro, what should we do for book club? We need to do a book, and it needs to be like less than 8 hours so we can finish it in a day. And I'm like, oh fuck. And so I'm like sitting there, I'm building a treehouse. I'm sitting up in the treehouse, and I'm scrolling through my library on Audible, and I'm like, oh, End the Fed by Ron Paul. That's 6 hours. Fucking let's do that one, bro. Fucking fuck the Fed, So I was super stoked that like I was able to find a good one that I already had that was like easy and doable and everything. So I was quite stoked that was a good choice. So hell yeah. And now I can mark it off of my books that I've read list. So
it was a good one. I liked it a lot. Tell you what, before we do the ending stuff, let's give one last round of shout outs to the good people out in the audience.
Yes, it's time for the chat motherfucking shout outs. Take it away, Z.
Will do. All right, Mr. Pulse Ray Vision coming in here said, is the book club open to fiction?
Ooh,
Science
too.
Even. Imagine this. The author of the Dark Matter series coming in here. Tell you what, we might be able to cover that one on book club. I would be very interested to actually give that a thorough read and talk about it. So that would be a fun one. Like I mentioned this in the chat. We did cover Starship Troopers last year, and at the end of the year, we did rate it as one of our favorites. So yeah, definitely open to some science fiction stuff. Would love it.
Hell yeah.
Good buddy of ours, Mr. Dace, coming in here saying, ahoy, brothers.
Ahoy, amigo.
Brother.
Good to see you, Dace.
Good
Ship
to
for
see
me,
you, sir.
Timbers. I love the nautical theme that Dace seems to stick with. That's fucking awesome.
It's a good one. Well, also got Arceus saying, okay, we've established we can't just abolish the Fed. So the best we can do right now is improve it. I think the book actually argued the other thing, which is like, we can't improve it, but we can phase it out. And that one I definitely agree with. It was a very logical and sobering point, which is like, as much as you want to just like tear the whole thing down, realistically, this thing is just so embedded in every aspect of life in the world that you got to be careful with it. Otherwise, we could see some pretty drastic effects.
I'm going to take a cynical approach. I'm going to say that we can't abolish the Fed. I don't think it can be abolished. I think that it will take a massive amount of education first, and then a massive amount of people like being pissed off enough to take action, which they're generally not. They got their sports ball games they can watch. They got their bread. They got their circuses. Like if people can get angry about something, then yeah, it might happen. But like, it's so embedded in our system. Like the cancer has grown and spread to every single part of the body. It's like Mr. Burns from The Simpsons, where it's like he can't die because there's so many diseases like fighting each other inside his body, trying to kill them, that like no one's able to take the winning place and whatever. And so it's like, I think that the Fed is so carcinogenic and so embedded and so deeply rooted that it can't just be like ripped out. You'll kill the host. The parasite has wrapped around every cell in the body, and so it takes a long time of a very long treatment to undo it. So
yeah,
starting with education.
This is my practical political thing that I've arrived at, but it's honestly pretty close to that, which is that idealistically, could we fix things? Yeah, we could always fix things if there's the will to do it. But the thing that I think I've arrived at is that there's just not the political stomach or the will at this current time to really do anything. And especially with something as complex and as intricate as this, and massive as well, I just don't see it happening if we can't even fix small stuff as it stands right now. So I hate to say it, on the current path, I think we're looking realistically, there's a higher probability for systemic collapse than reform at some point in the future. Again, as things stand right now, just because I don't see the willpower on the American people as a whole, a collective, to get it done. So
I'm inclined to agree.
and I say that with a heavy heart. I'm not thrilled about it. I would love to fix it. I don't want to see the nation fall apart.
Yeah. Nobody is like we've been drinking too much fluoride, so we're docile. There's too much plastic particles inside of our endocrine system. So like we don't have as much testosterone anymore, societally speaking. We have easy recreation. There's porn, there's TikTok, there's social media, there's like video games, there's all these outlets that there didn't used to be. So there's too much bread, there's too much circuses. And so we can't get angry about the problems because there's just too much heroin just lying around, free for the taking. And so societally speaking, people will never get angry enough to take the steps necessary to cause the revolution. So the thing that's going to happen is either enslavement or collapse. That's my cynical agreement with you, bro.
Something. My grandfather's balls were full of lead. My father's balls were full of asbestos. Mine are
Yep.
full of microplastics.
Yep.
My sons will be full of space fentanyl or something.
Yeah. I think it's seven credit cards worth every single year or something.
Alrighty, Hexagon lost in Asia. Would there be more or less war if the Fed did not exist? I think the answer from the book is there would be less war because people would be less likely to go to war. It would not end war. It would just...
Or it'd be more expensive.
Yeah, it would be a lot more expensive, and it would refocus people on like what the actual cost of it is.
Yep. If somebody else filled up your car with gasoline all the time and you never had to pay for gas, then
you wouldn't.
And all of a sudden now you have to pay for gas. You're going on less trips.
Yes, sir. Absolutely.
There you go.
Just live. Government spending, war, bailouts create exponential inflation because they have to increase borrowing to stay operational. Expand pet projects.
Mm-hmm.
Look, I hear you, but I think you are true. But at the same time, specifically in the US, if you look at the proportion of the budget, we are paying just as much on the interest on the debt as we are the military now. And the entitlement programs such as Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, all of those outpace, each of them outpaces the military spending. So we got larger stuff. But yeah, you're entirely right. All that stuff is definitely not helping the debt at all.
Yep. And I want to cover this last one. Social Security number is a government bond. Essentially, I mean, bond is the wrong word. A performance bond, something like that. Performance bond, ens legis, sole proprietorship is a whole rabbit hole. And I don't feel like getting into it all tonight. This might be something we talk about later, but it takes so much information to get that idea across into a bite-sized chunk where somebody would be able to accept it. The basic, the most easy thing to accept is like it is a separate thing from you as a human squishy meat bag full of blood and goop. It's like, if I take a Polaroid picture of you, right? That's not you. It's a picture of you. It's a representation. You might hold it. You might toss it into a fire. But like no matter what happens to that picture, it's not you. So it might look like you. It might have the same name as you. You might have control over it, but it's a separate entity. So just something to think about with the Social Securities. So yeah, good chat. Shout outs, broski, and a good show. An excellent book. A wonderful host. You've done a fantastic job. I like it.
Right back at you, big guy. Takes two to keep this dance going.
Hell yeah, dude. I'm here. I'm here to do as many DGen Roundtable shows as I can, whether you're at weddings or not. I'm here to keep this ball rolling. If there's one thing that I learned from Winston Churchill, it's that he one time quoted Richard Hart saying that persistence above all else. So shout out to Winston Churchill quoting Richard Hart before Richie was born. But yeah,
I dig it.
Yeah.
Alrighty, sir. Tell you what, it's time to do the thing. Where can the folks find you? What do you got going on? And on the scale of 0 to 10,000 hours for mastery as a crypto investor, where does this book fall for you?
You guys can find me right now in Colebrook, New Hampshire. Tomorrow I will be leaving for New Jersey, going down to Atlantic City, doing a job down there for a little bit, then coming right back up here and doing some more dirt bike riding and treehouse building and maybe fixing problems in my house, but probably not because that's expensive. I've already blown through like $5,000 since I've been up here just fixing shit and doing miscellaneous purchases. So I got to start being more budget minded. So that's where you guys can find me. Also inside the DRT Telegram, which you guys can see up there by scanning that QR code up on the top right-hand side of the screen. T.me/DRT join now is the URL for you to get on in there and hang out with us. It's pretty quiet chats. There's ever since some of the rabble rousers have been muted, and some of the folks like it's also a bear market, so folks are just less interested. But go in there, post some funny memes, talk about guns. If you want to talk about crypto, go for it. But like it's just a cool place to hang out. Lots of fun stuff going on there, and I try often to pin when we go live on the show, so the folks in there will know when we're going live. Which, by the way, is every Wednesday, Friday, and Sunday at 8 p.m. Eastern. So that's where you can find me next. This Sunday covering the news for whatever's been going on in the crypto sphere. There might be some folks joining me, there might not. If I'm running solo, then I'll just do a campfire stories session where I literally read headlines and we have a good time. If folks join me, then we might talk more in depth about articles and things. And then on a scale of 0 to 10,000 hours, I think that this book is like in the solid 200 to 500 hour range. I think that it's a good book to read closer to the beginning of a person's cryptocurrency journey. If you look at like 0 to 10,000 hours as being like between 0 to 5 years of experience doing a thing, this is something you should probably read within your first like 6 months or so of going on your cryptocurrency journey, if not sooner than that. Or finance in general, like understanding how the thing that is the big poisonous monster in the back of the room, like what it's doing to you and how it works in a bite-sized nugget. Like it's very easy to digest this book. It's very simple concepts. Dr. Paul is a very smart individual, but he's also a great communicator. He's able to take these crazy, complicated ideas and digest them down for the masses, for the peanut brains such as myself to be able to digest. So that's where I think the folks should read this book. And what about you, Z? Where can the folks find you? What have you got going on? And where would you rate this book on a scale of 0 to 10,000 hours in a person's finance journey?
As far as the rating goes, I think I'm entirely on the same page as you. This is like a 500-hour book, and the way you phrase it, like within the first 6 months, because that's kind of where that 500-hour mark falls. Like,
yeah,
this gives you perspective on the thing that you were trying to outpace as the investor. This is the cause. This is the source. This is ultimately going to drive the business cycle until it is solved in some sort. And ultimately, it's up to you as the investor, especially in crypto and also traditional markets, to understand how to operate around this thing, this monster that is the Federal Reserve. So it's not going to tell you how to do the investing, but it's going to give you the goalpost of what we're trying to beat. And I think it's a really good perspective to have.
Sure. Yep.
As far as me, though, folks, you can find me on X and Instagram at ZenithDI, but you can also find us inside of the Telegram, as Will mentioned earlier. We are going to be back on Sunday for a flagship news show, 8 p.m. Eastern time, as is all of our shows. We got a Whiskey Wednesday coming up after that. And then I think I have a wedding next weekend, so I will not be here for book club. So that is up to you, good sir, about what you want to do.
All right.
But then outside of that, yeah, we will be back. We will see you when we see you. So with that being said, I'm going to pull up the thing. It's in my Telegram. I saved it. Alrighty, here we go.
Oh, the copy?
Yes, sir. The copy. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank you all for spending your valuable time with us here on the DGen Roundtable. We know that time is your most valuable asset, and we appreciate you guys spending it right here with us every time. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Zenith, but more importantly, you have been watching the DGen Roundtable. Mr. Producer, that's me. Go ahead and get that trigger finger ready, because it's time to remind all the folks at home to remember to DGen responsibly.